The London Marathon began only 6 years ago. A modern contribution to the calendar of great British sporting events, some with roots going back well over a century. The Grand National, the boat race, the Derby, the FA Cup final, all unique British occasions, born perhaps out of eccentricity, but the envy of the rest of the world. The London Marathon now stands proudly. The hand of friendship after 26 miles, 385 yards, and Beardsley of America ties with Simonsen of Norway. Jones pounds his way to the finish now. The fastest marathon ever run in the United Kingdom. New British record for Joyce Smith. Storming home for his finest victory. A terrific finish by Greta Weiss. Very fine run indeed. It wins the London Marathon for Charlie Spedding. And certainly Ingrid Christensen goes now into the record books. Kingdom all-colours record for Steve Jones, who finishes really strong. Striding home, the girl who won last year wins again this year, and this time with a new world best. On the far side of the common, where Prince Charles is talking to some of the competitors, there'll be the fast start. And in the background there, Seko of Japan, who's one of the favourites for the race, together with his teammate Kanhai. Meanwhile, David Davis is our man at the start. He's been talking to some of the thousands of competitors. Drops. The field gun of the Royal Artillery will boom out the starting signal. If you don't know Blackheath Common, well, the athletes start on either side of the common. This is the blue start, the fast start, and those athletes in front competing for places and prize money at the head of the field. Joyce Smith, winner twice of the London Marathon, now retired with the Royal Starter. As the Prince drops the flag, the starting gun will boom out. About 90 seconds before the start.
Couldn't have a better advisor on marathon running than our First Lady of Marathon, Joyce Smith, and only just retired, I may say. Really set all the standards for the women to follow in Great Britain's athletic team. Started life as 1,500-meter runner and 3,000-meter runner, and then developed as our #1 marathon runner.
So the athletes call forward an anxious wait. Of course, a lot of the fun runners have been out there for 2 to 3 hours already, and there's not very much shelter, Blackheath or in Greenwich Park, which has been the main problem for them, really, keeping warm. And actually the wind seems to be getting up a little bit. Just over half a minute to go to the start. The elite wait on the far side of the common. The starters on the red start are all ready to go as well. And so they're in the final countdown now, with about 15 seconds to go. The first Royal London Marathon. And straight away, they go very quickly to establish their places for a roundabout, which comes up after about 500 to 600 yards. The leaders, of course, are always in touch with the clock, and pace is all important to them, as indeed it is for the athletes in the fun run, because starting too fast is the greatest crime of all. Chris Brayshaw had a word of advice to the fun runners yesterday, which was very well based, and those are the fun runners, the veterans, which was very well based, his advice. He said, if you're running too fast for the first half of the race, to talk to your companions, you are running too fast. Actually, I think, Brendan Foster, you could extend that advice to 20 miles.
I think these days that's absolutely true, because I think nowadays the marathon is a race where you get to 20 miles, and according to Charlie Spedding, who's an Olympic bronze medalist and winner of the previous London Marathon, he says that the event's changed nowadays. He says it's an event where you go faster from 20 miles to the finish, whereas the evolution of the event, it was who slowed down the least. So talking to each other, they should almost be not going too fast so that they could do that. But this is the bit I like, these boys with the banners. I don't know whether they carry them all the way, but you see that one every year, hello Alderney, and I didn't think there would be enough people in Alderney, or runners in Alderney, to carry that banner, but there they are, hello Alderney 86, we'll see you next year.
And I think, Brendan, those gates may be the salvation of these fun runners, because it slows them down. There's no way they can squeeze through this bottleneck. They may have liked the idea of getting away on the charge, but this is the disciplined approach, and it says the snails there, and in fact they are, and they're going to be passing that point for the next 10 minutes or so. But nearly 20,000 runners on their way.
10,000 in each of the two starts, and this is the fast start. And by the way, they merge after about 3.5 miles just beyond Woolwich Barracks, the famous home of the Royal Artillery. Come down some dual carriageway there in Woolwich, and the barriers are set across the centre of the road, and after that they merge and it becomes one race. Looking at these athletes, well, it's worth reminding you, the oldest competitor this year is 81 years old Pat Riley of South East London. And the oldest woman competitor this year, as last year, Carla Ali, who does most of her training at about 3 o'clock in the morning. She's aged 72.
And Pat Riley started life as a sprinter, so there's a hope for a lot of these fellas. He ran against Harold Abrahams in 1924 and is a very sprightly 81 indeed.
He said in the opening about this rivaling the other great events in Britain, but a thing for me that makes a little bit of difference for this is when you watch the Cup final, or when you watch the Grand National, or when you watch a Test match, people don't know people who play in the Test match or in the Cup final, but everybody in Britain knows somebody who's running here today, and that's what I think makes this event a little bit special, because everybody's got a friend at work or a relation or somebody they know who runs, and I think that, you know, gives everyone who's watching this thing a little bit of a personal insight. Nobody I know ever sees anybody though run.
No, with the royal approval. That's lovely.
Blue start, and you may notice there the athletes just checking their watches as they go through, because well, one thing they always point out to you afterwards is that when they cross the finishing line, the time is wrong for the slower athletes, because of course they've had to queue for several minutes to get through the start.
Some of the 614 accountants and 102 agriculturists and 104 architects and 177 doctors and 2,604 engineers. 77 estate agents amongst them, 341 firemen, 66 farmers, 473 housewives, probably the hardest working of the lot. And everybody that was talking to me at the pasta party last night said we've got to give a tremendous vote of thanks to the wives who make all this possible. And they do. Tremendous support. And here are 473 of them running in the London Marathon. 772 policemen and 11 politicians. "67 taxi drivers wondering whether they've found the right route."
Prince Charles clearly fascinated by this special occasion. The royal seal of approval, and a quarter-mile point. This is around 10,000 meters, and this is the news. Leading group includes Steve Anders of St Helens, Seko of Japan, two previous winners, Hugh Jones and Mike Grattan, Anton of Spain, and Stig Husby of Norway. Those are certainly among the leaders. The 5-mile time, by the way, quite quick. It was 24:10, which means they're knocking out 450 miles. And if that's to be believed, Brendan, and I've got a 6-mile time now at 29:02, so it looks fairly consistent. They're on target for something around 2:07. Seiko's there. Steve Anders is the tall figure. Hugh Jones in the blue vest. Number 9 is Husby. Number 23 up there, Anton of Spain. And the other Japanese, Kanhai, is with the leaders, number 5. Christoph Herrler of West Germany in the black kit going through. And they're already beginning to get away. Steve Anders, number 81. He's run just over 63 for a half marathon. Followed by number 1, who's Seko, winner of 6 marathons, 4 in Japan and 2 in America. Kanhai in 3rd place, wearing number 5. And just behind him, Hugh Jones. Also there is Husby and Christoph Herrler. So those are the top 6. And they're already beginning to stretch them out. And Brendan, that pace news, if it's to be believed, and it looks to be right, is pretty quick now.
That is, that pace is almost, it's under 2:08, it's 2:07, and it's close to world record pace. And I noticed Steve Anders is doing absolutely right. He's doing a great job there. The second group, there's Kevin Forster from Gateshead Harriers, and number 30, Henrik Alban of Denmark. So, I mean, there's a other race going on here because there are places at stake in the Commonwealth Games and the European Championships. So I think people like Kevin Foster, who I was expecting to run well, he's probably weighing up who's in front of him and who's next to him, and probably trying to do enough without killing himself to make one of the teams this summer.
And we saw Lindsay Robertson go through, Brendan, and he'll be hoping for a place in the Scots team for Edinburgh. Lindsay Robertson was wearing 39 from Edinburgh AC.
As they go through, a check on the pace. The first mile, 4:51. It's remarkably even. Then 4:55, 4:43 in the 3rd mile, which is a downhill stretch. 4:50, it's slightly downhill. There is a gradient on the course. It drops from the start to the finish. So 4:51, 4:55, 4:43, 4:50, 4:51, 4:52. And that is ideal pace-making because it's so even.
Well, Steve Anders is doing a great job with that pace, and I think this is his marathon debut. He's run some very, very good half marathons, and as long as he doesn't get crazy in the next 5 or 6 miles, then I think he should be considering about how fast he's going to finish and not worry too much about that initial pace, because there's only about 3 or 4 people gone with him, and it's all about trying to qualify for the games for Steve Anders.
Race Medley just went through shot there.
That's the scene in Jamaica Road, which is approaching Tower Bridge. Tower Bridge is just beyond 12 miles. They come off the Surrey docks at this stage, then come up Jamaica Road and turn right over Tower Bridge. And the crowd waiting there for the arrival of the leaders. Latest time news we've got. And they're knocking out 450 miles fairly consistently.
Well, 48:13 for 10 miles brings them close to world record pace, 2:07:30, around about that kind of time. And the conditions, as I said earlier, the conditions are fine to do that. And the runner, Seko from Japan, is good enough to do that. So, you know, the London Marathon is, again, living up to its great reputation in overall quality standard.
Each morning at dawning, birdies sing and everything is sun. Kiss, kiss, and don't be late. That's why I can hardly wait. Open up those all my cares and woe. Here I go, singing low. Bye, bye, black. Give him a cheer, ladies and gentlemen, come on. When somebody waits for me, sugar sweet, so is she. Bye, bye, blackbird. No one here to love or understand me. All that's all the stars, they are happy. Make my bed, not the light. I'll arrive late tonight. Blackbird, bye-bye. Let's have you all singing, come on. Pack up all my cares and woes. Here I go.
The athletes must be very close now to the band in Jamaica Road. We've had an 11 miles time, which was 53 minutes 10 seconds. The last mile 4:57 as they came through off Surrey docks. The road service, by the way, much better than it has been through the docks in previous years. It's improving with every year's running of the race. Incidentally, Greta Weitz's time has been corrected. Her time was impossibly fast at 8 miles. We are getting all these times remote, but it does look as if the men's race is being timed, or the information we're getting is correct. Certainly the women's race has been a bit slower than we've been reflecting, I think. But the men's race, they're still, we believe, on schedule for one of the fastest marathons ever run.
I think Toshihiko Seko has got something to prove, because he's undoubtedly one of the world's greatest marathon runners. But the last time he was in England, he struggled badly at Milton Keynes about 8 years ago.
Well, I'm not quite sure we'll pick up the athletes here, but it looked like a couple of the police outriders going through there. We might just get a glimpse of the leaders. You can spot them. You are as remote at home as we are. The numbers are 1, Seko of Japan. 81 is Steve Anders of St Helens. Number 5 is Kanhai, Japan. Number 4 is Hugh Jones, Great Britain. Number 8 is Stahl of Sweden. Number 6 is Peterson, United States. Christoph Höhler is number 3 from West Germany.
Right back off the road.
And of course we should get good coverage when they go on about half a mile up the road to Tower Bridge.
Dancing in the street,
There's the lead timing car. So it rather looks from that as if our timings, which have been flashed back from along the route, our mile timings in the men's race anyway, have been pretty accurate. And there is Steve Anders in the red-banded vest from St Helens. Alongside him, that looks like number 1, Seko. There are 2 Japanese up there, but I think that's Seko, the faster of the 2 Japanese, and it is. He's the fastest man in the race this year. He's won, I was just checking back actually, he's won 5 marathons in Japan, and he's won once in, I think it was Boston. But in fact, when he's run in Europe before, he's not done outstandingly well. But they're playing along very, very nicely indeed. It was said that Steve Anders would be in there to set some sort of fast pace for the athletes. But Steve Anders is a dangerous athlete in his own right. He's had some very, very good half-marathon form, and no one can take liberties with him. There's Hugh Jones in 3rd place going through. He's a previous winner. Mike Grattan was with the leaders, another previous winner, but he has been dropped.
And joy at last for these spectators, because they've been waiting, a couple of hours for the first of the athletes to appear. Seko, the inscrutable Seko, who really is one of the iron men of marathon running. And there'll be some familiar faces, and Christoph Höhler certainly in this bunch. So all the big men appear to be up there.
Höhler's on the far side there. Number 69, also with them, is of Norway.
And Pat Peterson's with them, and Pat Peterson's a man who's a big threat. That's the American, the 26-year-old. He's a 6-footer. He wears number 6. Pat Peterson, one of the big threats.
News of Greta Weitz. We've had a corrected time now, and it looks more sensible. Greta Weitz, we're told, went through 10 miles in 54:24. Her personal best is around 2:25. She's only ever been beaten in one marathon, by the way, that she's finished. That was the Olympic marathon when she was 2nd to Joan Benoit. Mike Grattan going through, former winner, as Hugh Jones is, but they're quite a bit off the pace now.
Christiansen of Denmark was one of those in that pack, wearing 18. Sven-Erik Christiansen.
And there's Kjell-Erik Stahl, one of the most consistent marathon runners in the world. He runs about 20 marathons a year, and he's absolutely, every time there's a marathon, he's there and he's running in it.
Actually, Chris Brasher was telling me, Brendan, that Stahl had to guarantee if he was running in the London, he wouldn't run a marathon in the previous month.
Well, that's quite difficult for him because he loves the marathon. He ran about 30-odd marathons 2 years ago, and everyone who, I mean, but he still runs well. I mean, it doesn't seem to harm him. It would harm most normal runners. I don't think anyone's ever run as many marathons as he has.
That's right, but he was asked to slow it down for the London. That was Philip Mills, 27, in the wheelchair, incidentally.
The athletes going through now, the chasing groups, Jamaica Road. Meanwhile, the leaders are approaching Tower Bridge. Just beyond 12 miles. Check on the times we've got. Way inside 5-minute miles. 4:50 brings them back in just over 2 hours, 7 minutes, and they're still on schedule for that. Steve Jones's course record is 2:8:16 set last year, and they are inside that time at the moment. Steve Anders still alongside Seko of Japan. Seko, his best time is 2:8:38. 4 times the winner of Fukuoka. He won the 1983 Tokyo Marathon and also first in Boston. Seen him on the track over here. He also ran in Milton Keynes when he was way back in the 60s some years ago. As I said before, his European form has not been good. He's keeping a careful check on the pace, and they're both looking very relaxed. Hugh Jones in 3rd place at the moment. Hugh, who was the 1982 winner, 2 hours, 9 minutes, 24 seconds. He's way inside that pace. And he looks, Brendan, as if he's finding it hard.
He does, but I think he's come out of that second group because the second group was further behind than that. So Hugh Jones is making a rush here because I think Anders is here as a pacemaker. Seko arrived. He asked for a pacemaker to run about 2:8. He's got a pacemaker who's taking him around 2:7:40 or 2:7:30 even. So he's got what he wanted. And I think Steve Anders will be thinking about, do I keep going? Do I try and win the race, or do I just keep going as a pacemaker? And I think Hugh Jones in 2nd place. This is a psychological halfway point, and I think Hugh Jones is going to start thinking about his overall result now.
Hugh ploughing on, and he's got in his sights, of course, a place in the European Championships in Stuttgart. He said that's his declared intention. Steve Jones already picked for that. And there's Alistair Hutton, the leading Scotsman, wearing number 2. He was 3rd last year, and he's not very pleased with the Scottish Commonwealth Games selectors. Alistair thinks he should have been selected as of right, and a lot of people agree with him.
One of the Turks behind, sorry, that's Tertsi, and one or two very good Turks in this race. Tertsi running just behind Alistair Hutton there.
But there's Alistair Hutton leading that group, and I agree with Alistair's opinion. I think Alistair should have been selected for the Commonwealth Games. I think Scotland needs athletes of his calibre and of his quality, because I think he could have had a chance in that event. So he's running well again. We often see Alistair running well. Whenever he comes to England, he certainly gives of his best, and he looks pretty good there.
Just behind him is Tertsi the Turk. Just behind him, Kavernmo of Norway. Pat Peterson is there as well in the headband.
Christoph Hurler just at the back of that pack. And 10, here's Kevin Forster from England, the Gateshead athlete. Mike Grattan in the centre of that pack there. 116 is Phil O'Brien, the old Gatonian, on the left of that pack. Number 11 is Cedelio Keito of Portugal. There's another Turkish athlete there. And 74, that is Ahmet Altun. Failed to finish in the Los Angeles Marathon, but has had a good time since then. 41. We'll just check on. Ewan Ellis from Cardiff, Newport Harrier. Best of 2 hours 15. He reckons he's going to do 2 hours 14. He's just about on schedule for that.
David Long is 2:39. Member of the Massey Ferguson Runners Club in Coventry. And he's way inside his best time, which is 2:25. Greta Weitz coming through at Jamaica Road. She's now approaching 12 miles.
Interestingly, David, she hasn't got her elder brother running with her as a pacemaker. He injured himself earlier in the week. She's got a younger brother, but he's nowhere near as fast as Greta. But there's always a group of athletes that run with her. And I think some of the Gateshead boys might be up there, Brendan. And there she is. Got a phalanx of runners to protect her and keep her going along. A lot of good club men out to help Greta Weitz of Norway.
And didn't she look very comfortable there? We've no news, by the way, of the British runners down the field, but of course it's very, very difficult indeed to track the women's race because they get so mixed up with the good male club runners. Veronique Morrow is the #1 Briton, and she is the fastest Briton ever.
And Veronique Morrow, we're looking to improve on her own British record. She's in that kind of form. She ran 70 minutes for a half marathon a couple of weeks ago, so she's looking to significantly improve on her 2:28 British record. Just leading that group there of men is Ray Smedley and a former winner just with him, Inge Simonsen. But we can't actually relate these and how far behind the leading group there, which is a little bit of a problem. But Greta in that group, I think, is running under her personal best time. But I don't think she enjoys entirely being totally surrounded by men. I think she's much happier running with her brother. She's running around the world with him, and he's pretty good, you know. So often when he's not there, or this time when he's not there, she's been taken up by about 20 others, which is a bit of a problem.
Got some pretty startling news from the halfway stage, if it is, or just approaching the halfway stage. This is supposed to be the official time, and I've no reason to doubt it. 62 minutes, 54 seconds.
Well, that halfway time of 62 minutes, 54 seconds, it's a bit quick, David.
I agree. I've just got a corrected time. That was 13 miles, actually. It's 63:30, but that's still quick. In fact, they're on target for 2 hours, 7 minutes. If they can run the second half as fast, which one would doubt, but having said that, they may well do with the pressure. And not a bad day for the leaders in a marathon at all. The weather's cool. The wind in the main has been behind what there is. And there's one of the Paula Fudge and Anne Ford, I think together there, the twin sisters, pretty well. They look to be well up. I didn't see Veronique Morrow go through. On paper, she ought to be ahead of them. But none of the girls going through, just hidden slightly. We believe those are the leaders in the women's marathon. But of course there is the question mark about Veronique Morrow. Those are the mile times, and Greta, the leader, is still very much on course for a personal best, although she may not threaten Ingrid Christensen's world best and the London Marathon record last year of 2:21.06. Well, there's a young man called Nigel Flynn, who we saw sprint past the finish in one of the mini-marathon races, and we can hear now from him at Westminster Bridge.
Nigel Flynn, well done indeed to win that senior boys race. How did you find it?
It was hard all the way. It's good opposition, particularly last mile. I was really struggling to hold on, but I did it, so...
What about the crowd? Did it help you?
Yeah, it was very good, particularly around the finish. You know, everyone starts to get tired, and it's really good having them cheering you on, yeah.
Where are you from?
Harrow, Pinner.
And your school?
No, Harrow Wheels, Sixth Form College.
Ambitions in track and field?
Too early to tell. I'd like to make it, you know, to the top, but just got to wait and see. It's really too early.
What's your event on the track?
1,500 and 3,000 metres mainly.
Today, a big boost in your career?
Yeah. The time was miles quicker than I expected. Although I was hoping to win it, obviously. So, yeah, I'm very pleased with it. It's good.
What about next year? The full marathon next year? You're old enough, aren't you?
Yeah, no chance. I couldn't do a 26-mile road race. A lot harder.
How are they going to find it then in the last 3 or 4 miles of the main marathon then? They're going to find it tough, are they? Is there a wind?
Very tough. Yeah, there is a wind. It was against us most of the way, really. But they're coming in that way, so they should be all right, really. It'll be on their side.
Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks.
A day for him to remember. Well, we've seen the leaders through... well, they're beyond the 14 miles mark now, and the main pack going over Tower Bridge just beyond 12 miles, but way back at Cutty Sark, this is the 6 1/4 mile mark, or approximately, and still they go through. These the fun runners and the fancy dress competitors. Meanwhile ahead, bigger stream passing men impromptu street party at Jamaica Road, and they'll be pleased to see Tarbridge about half a mile further on.
You're nearly there. I wish he thought so. Hope he sees that sign. We've seen Mahatma Gandhi go through, and we've seen Superman go through, and we've seen one or two walkers who walked this distance very well indeed, and will be ahead of some of the runners at the finish too.
Incidentally, some good news. We do hear, by the way, the weather is clearing rapidly, and our helicopters should be flying. In fact, I believe may well be flying at this moment, will make all the difference to our coverage. And in fact, the helicopter is in the air now, and we've got our first shots. Now, this makes a big difference from our coverage point of view. I have explained before, again, forgive me if it's irritating those who've been watching all the time. The situation has been that the helicopter, the BBC helicopter, could not fly because of the cloud ceiling was so low. It's got to fly at 1,000 feet, and from there it reflects pictures from that tracking camera we've got on the alongside the lead runner, who is Seko, by the way, of Japan, who's now broken away from Steve Anders. And we're getting two helicopters up there, one to get pictures from the lead motorcycles there, the tracking shot alongside the leader, and of course the other one can then cover the race in general. That's what we've been missing for so much of the race so far, but as you can see from the quality of the shots, the weather is changing rapidly.
And the red brick road tells you we're in the London Enterprise Zone in the Docklands, a brand new road, and industry growing up all around it. Seko, a discipline of Zen training, who lost his coach last year, one of the great coaches of marathon, the father of marathon running in Japan, Kiyoshi Nakamura, who died in a fishing accident, but was the man that transformed this fairly modest athlete who went to an American university and thought he was going to do things, and his athletic career began to get away from him. And then the coach Nakamura went out there and said, come back, accept the discipline of training, and you could be one of the world's greatest marathon runners. And this is exactly what he did, and he really is recognized as one of the great disciplined men of running. He once ran 57 miles non-stop in a training run to assure himself that that the training was going well, and he's broken away from a world-class field here by considerable marching. And he was perhaps always the favorite, Brendan, but certainly he's looking a transformed athlete, is he not?
He was very disappointing in the Los Angeles Olympics. Most of the athletes were nervous about him because he'd had a string of victories and he hadn't been beaten for about 5 years, I think. And I was talking to Charlie Spedding yesterday, and I said, if you were running today, who would you be worried about? And he just said straight away Seko, and he didn't mention another name. So, I mean, this athlete has, you know, he's got something about him. But this isn't his normal style. He normally waits and waits and waits, and there's no one good enough for him to wait on. I mean, I've seen him run and sit on athletes and kick with 60 meters to go in a marathon. So for him to press out and lead, it's an unusual style. So let's see what he's like on his own. We've never seen him like this before.
Indeed, Brendan. He is recognized as having a kick, which is rare in marathon runners, as Brendan was saying, but he really can sprint at the end of it. He trains himself to do that.
Well, there's the lead car approaching the 17-mile mark. Island Gardens on the Isle of Dock. And it's Seko, the favourite from Japan. He's 29. Very, very experienced marathon runner. He says, running is my only girlfriend. He's the world record holder on the track at 25 and 30 kilometres.
And a recent race over 30 kilometres suggested that he's in spanking form. He just missed that world record by 3 seconds, so there's no doubt about it that Seko reckons he's ready for this. And this event, of course, the marathon, fits the Japanese mentality perfectly. Bit of a samurai warrior on the course there, I think.
Some news from the front of the race is that we understand that Steve Anders, who was chasing and helping Seko in many ways over the first half of the race, has now dropped out, and Hugh Jones has moved into second place, but there's no confirmation of that yet.
I think I just saw John Holt go through picture, the secretary of the International Amateur Athletic Federation, self-performed international half-miler. I'm pretty certain that was John Holt that just shot through. Carla Ali, our oldest woman, Very experienced. This is the lady that trains at 4 o'clock in the morning. She says it's less crowded at that time. She'll be helped on her way as well. Another great spirited character. Kala Ali. This is Yutaka Kanai, Japan, the 26-year-old, much taller than Seko. He's 5'10", this fellow. 7th in the Olympic Games, 10,000 meters. And both these Japanese marathon runners are excellent track runners at 10,000 meters and 5,000 meters.
So that shot suggests that he's in 3rd place. So it's Japan 1 and 3, with Hugh Jones of Great Britain in 2nd place. Seko leads. Hugh Jones, we believe, in 2nd place. Kanhai is 3rd. And I think at the back of the shot there on the Isle of Dogs, I saw Alistair Hutton, who was 3rd last year. And there he is, number 2, going quite well alongside the Turk, who's Terzi. Terzi, a 2:12 man, just inside 2:13, 2:12.54. 16th in the Olympic marathon. And he's running a very quick race today.
I think Terzi was a winner of the Frankfurt Marathon, and that's the sort of form that he's in. And Alistair Hutton running with a good man. Kevin Forster there.
The leader still out on the Isle of Dogs. Comes off that little loop and then turns back towards the tower. Goes through St Catherine's Dock, Wapping High Street, St Catherine's Dock, then past Traders Gate and the Tower of London, then along the embankment, the Mall, and the finish at the top of Birdcage Walk over Westminster Bridge. It's very, very wet out there, by the way, but Seko looking very, very strong. A lot of water lying on the road in the Isle of Dogs. I was around the course the other day, and there was certainly a lot of puddles, but it's not going to bother these top runners too much. And incidentally, the other athletes, I saw a name out there I'd never spotted on the London Marathon course before, and he's just approaching it now. I think we're on the wrong side of the road actually to see it, but that's unimportant. It's a lovely name for the poor people down the field. Sufferance Wharf, and that's after 18 miles.
Just an indication of this man's form. When he won the 1983 Fukuoka Marathon, which is one of the great marathons in the world. He ran that in 2:08.38, the 3rd fastest time in history at that time. But in that field, he beat Salazar, Ikanga, Chiapinski, and the So twins, and that's why he's the most feared man in the field today.
Well, Ronnie's only lost 1 marathon, that was the Olympics, since 1979. So, I mean, I was explaining earlier that the boys have a sort of reverence for him because he was expected to do very, very well in the Olympic Games. But looking back to 2nd place, we saw a shot a little bit earlier of Hugh Jones. Seko looks really good, and the world record is certainly still within his grasp if he can continue this pace and increase it. But I don't think the race is over, because the race is... he's still got to go through the 22 miles and the 20-mile mark, and I think we've never seen him extend himself to this extent. We've never seen him on his own for so long, and just out of sight, just round that corner, Hugh Jones must be, because I didn't think he was that far back. Maybe my comments were slightly premature.
In fact, it's very difficult to judge distance on these tracking shots, but our information was, and it was flashback from the course, was that Seko was 100 metres in front of Hugh Jones. But certainly at this stage, judging by that shot and knowing that stretch of the road fairly well, he looks to be further behind than that.
And I've got to say, this part of the course looks downhill. The sort of speed that Terje Roel is drumming up on his wheelchair alongside him. That's the only company he's got. And he's, as Brendan was saying, his stoicism will be tested here. He rarely runs way out in front. But he does come from this school, this discipline of Zen training. That was what his coach Nakamura was famous for. There are about 90 athletes, most of them Japanese, and Hugh Jones has been out there to visit that school, and they really do discipline themselves tremendously. It's not just Zen, it's a mixture of Buddhism, Christianity and Zen, but it just tells these fellas that running is not only physical, it is mental as well.
And it is a great mental test, the marathon. And we're just looking to see if Hugh Jones had come into shot. He hadn't there, so I think he's more than 100 metres behind. Hugh Jones. Hugh Jones, who won this race in 1982. And indeed, the British have dominated it since the first London Marathon in 1981. That was a tie between Dick Beardsley, United States, and Simonson. Then Hugh Jones here won the second running. Mike Grattan won in 83, Charlie Spedding in 84, and of course Steve Jones set the record last year, 2 hours, 8 minutes, 16 seconds. Hugh's working very, very hard indeed. And he'll be well pleased with this run because the aim for him is a place in the European Championships team, of which Steve Jones has already been selected. Incidentally, if you're a bit puzzled and you've just joined us about the wheelchairs, they started some 15 minutes before the main race.
Hugh Jones there wearing his Ranelagh vest. Liverpool based for some time, where he was at Liverpool University studying architecture. Then he went to Budapest to do town planning. He's now settled down in Kentish Town, or Camden Town. He's moving in there with his wife, and he's a great character as well, Brendan. Hugh, this lad who used to do walkabouts for about 6 months on end and go into the desert and go to Kathmandu, and then it found that it was affecting his running, and he did find at the London Marathon that here he had the potential to be a world-class marathon runner, and has come back and has rather changed his attitude and is now a much more disciplined athlete than he was.
Well, except that he's just come back from China, Ron. His coach, Alan Story, who's a coach of Mike McLeod and the distant marathon coach in Britain, who's done a remarkable job out there in China with those athletes, because obviously he's got a lot to choose from. But Hugh went out and trained under him. He ran a marathon out there in 2:10, which is his first marathon since the Olympics, and he'd run well there. So he's come here with some good form behind him, and they were expecting him to do well.
Just fascinating experiments we're conducting here by remote control, trying to see how far Hugh Jones is behind the leader. That's the helicopter shot that we've missed so much this morning, but thank goodness the cloud ceiling has lifted, and it's quite a long way. Actually, a good shot there, because you don't realise how this course twists and turns through the docks. Runners on the outward journey, they are some 2 to 3 miles at least behind the leader.
The red brick road in the Isle of Dogs, and they'll just get a shot of Seko, and that is some gap. It looked to be 300 meters or more, and no sign of flagging at the moment.
I think the question is really, can he survive? Because we didn't think here that he was quite that far ahead. So now it's up to him. The race is between him and the road and the distance and his own measure of fitness and his own mind, because he's far enough clear to win the race, but he's running at a much faster pace than he's ever run before. He's running close to as fast as anyone's ever run before. The course record, his own, well, not his own Japanese record, but the Japanese record is in sight, and the world record's got to be in sight if he can continue to run on his own and apply himself, as some of your suggestions earlier on about his mental discipline have suggested he might.
Well, as David's already suggested, he said the marathon is my lover, and he follows the samurai code of it's hide your hone, hide your real intentions, but be constantly on the alert and look for the instant your enemy's guard is down. Well, he's got no enemy in sight at the moment, but he's hiding any pain that he might have, and he really is looking a formidable runner on this course. Toshihima Seko really running away at the moment, 29 years of age, 5'6", from Yokohachi City, and really is looking quite superb.
Just slowed very slightly to just over 5 minutes. I think that's the first mile he's run outside 5 minutes, between 17 and 18, 5:01. But of course that's the difficult period of the race now, when you're still very much aware of the pace you've been running at, but more importantly, how far you've got to go. Hugh Jones in second place, coached by Alan Story. This is 16th marathon. His first was run back in 78 when he won the Duchy of Cornwall race in 2 hours 25 minutes 13 seconds, but of course he's improved an awful lot since then. He also won the 3As at rugby in 1981. He was first in Oslo, also in 81. He won the London Marathon in 82. He was first in Stockholm a year later. He's had these injury problems. And Brendan, he's not the most graceful runner, is he? But he's very strong.
He is very strong. If you just looked at his face, you'd say he was struggling. But I remember when he won the London Marathon, he came down the mile and he was absolutely flying. But he still looked, just looking at his face, that he was struggling. So I say he's running strong. He came out of the pack, he's chased, he followed his own pace, he didn't go with that early pace set by Anders, and I think he's running well, and I think he's gonna this is going to be one of his fastest times ever, if not his own fastest time ever. And really, you know, if he just stays there in second place, he's done enough because he's here to qualify for the European Championships. And all right, Seko's here, and he looks as though he's going to win this race. There we see Seko again, but Jones has run really well, and it's great to see him back because with Spedding already selected and Steve Jones already selected, he's our next best, if not as good as, marathon runner. There's the leading woman, Greta Waite. She's running around 2:24 pace, which is her personal best. And if you think of her career, she's had a remarkable career at the marathon, and you know, here she is almost at the end of that career and running personal best times. And I think she's been spurred on for her personal best today by what's likely to happen in Boston tomorrow, because her country-mate and great rival Ingrid Christensen is running in Boston tomorrow, and they say she's going to run under 2:20. That's the race for women. It's like the 4-minute mile for men, and Greta knows that. She knows that Ingrid is in great shape, so Greta's going to come today and not go away without making some headlines.
Greta Waite's, of course, one of the highest-paid women athletes in the world, £100,000 a year. She and Mary Decker and Zola Budd, three of the highest-paid women athletes.
Changing the guard at Buckingham Palace. And so exact is this timing, by the way. I think this may well be the St James's Palace contingent on their way to take up the guard positions. And it's time to a matter of minutes, actually, to coincide or to miss the arrival. I mean, the worst thing that could happen is for the athletes to arrive through Admiralty Arch as the guard is marching back along the Mall. But it's very, very tightly timed. And we're told there'll be a 4-minute gap between the St James's Palace contingent taking up their positions, having marched along the Mall, and the lead runner coming through Admiralty Arch. And that runner looks certain to be Seko, although the news is that he's slowing slightly. 17 to 18 miles, he was over 5 minutes for the first time, 5:01. And then 18 to 19 miles at 5:04. But at the moment, he's still on schedule for a new course record and one of the fastest times in history, because if he can keep going now in the closing stages, he can still break 2 hours, 8 minutes.
Those are some interesting signs, though, because when you start slipping over 5 minutes after you've been running 4:50, it's not because you choose to, it's because your body makes you. And I was asking the question about seeing him exposed on his own at the front and see him apply himself on his own, because he prefers to run in a group. So those are interesting questions. And when we look back to Hugh Jones, he's running strongly, he's running well, so that we've got a race on here. It's not just a one-man race.
Some fascinating news, though, now of a change in pace at the top. Chris Brasher, who's in that lead timing car, the race director, we're through to him on a radio link, and Chris has just been telling Stan Greenboard, our statistician, that the lead car apparently was giving Seko some trouble. He was having to slow between 17 and 19 miles, but in fact they've sorted that out, and he's now speeded up again. From 19 to 20 miles, he ran 4:47, which is quite an astounding mile time at that stage.
And they're looking at the times. He's a minute ahead of Steve Jones's record. He's a minute ahead of Steve Jones's record, which was 2:08 last year. So he is still on world record pace. But you know, the 5:01 mile, we've got to ask the question: if the reason was that he had the car in the way, then fine. But I mean, I still think we've got something of a race. It's not just a one-man thing.
Yeah, you raised the question, Brendan, and question marks must occur at this time. And of course, one of the reasons he ran badly in Los Angeles was that he had hepatitis, and that's a very debilitating disease to suffer from, and it takes months to clear. Having said that, Hugh Jones, of course, had injuries in '82, and he was operated on by Viren's doctor then on his leg, and so they've all suffered, because this is a brutal training schedule. 120 miles a week these two fellas do. They've upped it from the 100, and so the sort of battering that their knees and ankles, just as acting as shock absorbers for 20-30,000 strides, is bound to have a wear and tear effect, and it always does. But to suffer a debilitating disease like hepatitis also had its effect on this Ironman, Seko.
These athletes at the tower, and shortly, by the way, Seko will be going underneath the tower and through past Traitor's Gate. Some 6 to 7 miles ahead of that group.
I don't know how they got up there, but that's a fabulous view. That's the view at the finish.
There's a good shot there. It may puzzle some non-athletes that those finishing funnels, Brendan Foster's an expert on these. In fact, they're so beautifully organised. They're channeled in there, aren't they, Brendan? And that's how their positions are counted, and they're very, very accurate.
They have to be, but that's almost become a science on its own. And Paul Canson, who's one of the best finish directors in the world, organises this finish. And in a Great North Run that we organise up in the northeast of England, where we have 25,000 runners, John Traynor does the same thing. They compare notes every year to see how the thing works. But Paul Canson quoted in the official programme saying, running the finish is harder than running the race. I think he's right, actually. But the pressure's not on yet. They're just having a relax, and they're probably interested in the race, interested in who's leading, and interested in how long they're going to come, how long they're going to take to be here. Entrants that were accepted for the London Marathon, and then we saw the number of finishers in the London Marathon. This year we think there are around 19,000 who actually started, and I'm sure that prediction of around 17,000 is going to be accurate, because I'm sure they're going to set a record this time. And we're looking at Seko. The weather's improving as he's going through here. His pace is increasing, so we may be seeing 2 sets of records.
Seko in the area of Wapping High Street and approaching picturesque scene in St Catherine's Dock. Chris Hallam there, I think he was in 3rd place in the wheelchair race, where Ron Pickett's been following that. He had a few problems.
I think actually he was back to 4th, but he appears to be back in the race now, and that's good news. Chris Hallam wearing 1 in the wheelchair race. Now, see if we can get some indication of whether that gap has closed, whether Hugh Jones has managed to erode down what was something like 300 metres that Seko had on him. Going past, I think that's Gun Wharf, is it? Just past there.
Seko faithfully following the timing equipment and the tracking camera we've got down there. Actually, it's rather puzzling to us what's happening behind him there. It looks as if there's another runner there, but it surely can't be. Oh, it's one of the wheelchairs.
Yes, it's Chris Hallam. It's behind him. But these cobblestones, the cobblestones that were a problem as they go through the tower, well, they've been covered as well. They've been working all night to get some impacted earth down so that it's not too tough on them. But there's a few cobblestones here they've got to get through. Look at the massive redevelopment and regeneration that's going on in London's Docklands. It really is quite remarkable. New buildings, and John Disley said how much he's had to change the course as new roads have been created and new buildings have been put up. They've had to divert, but my word, they go to some immense degree to make sure that it's absolutely accurate and that this marathon shall be a couple of metres over the 26 miles, 385 yards, so that all these good performances can be put forward and recognised as world best times if they should be there.
Seko now approaching St Catherine's Dock. There are cobbles here, and by the way, John Disley was saying that they wouldn't be able to lay the special carpet for the leading runners over the cobbles in the Tower of London if it was raining. So it's been pretty heavy rain in the early stages of this morning, so they may well have had to leave those cobbles. Now, you may remember last year this was where the lead changed hands slightly, with Charlie Spedding getting away from Steve Jones, but then Steve came back along the embankment to win the race. This is around 22 miles. That's the scene. St Catherine's Dock. And they go over a very picturesque Dutch bridge.
And And that's the first of the docks to be rebuilt and regenerated. It really is a beautiful scene. It's got an ambience all of its own. And following that will be the East India Docks, the West India Docks, and the railways are going in, the store port is going in. This is St Catherine Dock, the first of the London docks to be rebuilt. Crossing private roads here, incidentally, permission has to be granted. There's the Dutch bridge.
By the Tower Hotel. And it's a very positive run by the Japanese. He came here as the favourite, and he's run like a winner right from the start. He's really taken the race by the scruff of the neck. Once Steve Anders dropped out, Seko has really dominated.
The interesting thing about these cobblestones is that they're slippery rather than hard on the feet. They really are quite slippery. And although it creates a pleasant walkway in the rain, it's fairly treacherous. And you can see it's just a little bumpy through there. There's a marvellous view of the tower.
The lonely figure of the leader. And meanwhile, overhead, hundreds and hundreds still streaming over the bridge, over Tower Bridge, some 7 to 8 miles behind.
There we see Seko. I think he's feeling some effect now. He's glancing over his shoulder. He didn't need to because there's no one in sight. But he's never been in this position in a race. He's really spent his career running in very competitive races in Boston and Fukuoka and elsewhere, and he's never found himself having to lead for this far. So he's in new ground for himself. I think he's concentrating on the finish, how far he's got to go to the finish, and I think he's slowing there. He doesn't look as fresh, and he's certainly, his concentration, that was the first lapse of concentration we've seen from him when he looked over his shoulder. And there's Hugh Jones in second place, and he's not that far behind. I don't think he's as far behind now as he was at some point in the race.
He looks a workhorse, doesn't he, Hugh? He really is grinding it out and gritting his teeth. Tough guy. But Seko, of course, has been moulded by 1,000 years of ideology and philosophy, and the Japanese have a passion for this. And Chris Hallam back in that wheelchair race, and he's you saw where he was in relation to Seko, and now he's dropped back a bit, and Hugh Jones is about to overtake Chris Hallam. Hugh Jones.
Alistair Hutton there, together with Kanhai of Japan, and also it looks like Titsai, number 73 of Turkey. And this is the race for third place. And they won't want this to happen for too long, because the last thing a marathon runner wants at the end of a hard race like this is a real sprint finish. Alistair Hutton is going to present the selectors with a problem. Hugh Jones looks as if he's on the way to second place and a place in the European Championships. As we were saying earlier, Alistair Hutton is a little bit peeved, and probably rightly so, that he's not been selected as of right by the Scottish Commonwealth Games selectors. Charlie Spedding has for the Commonwealth Games for England. Steve Jones has for the European Championship. But Alistair Hutton has said, I believe, that if the choice is his, he'll go for 10,000 metres in the Commonwealth Games and concentrate on the marathon in the European Championships, which would be a blow, let's face it, to Scotland.
It would be a miss to Scotland up in Edinburgh, the Commonwealth Games this year, and I think Alistair would be in with a real chance of doing well in that event. But I think it's a wise choice from his point of view, because to run the 10,000 in the Commonwealth Games would be a good build-up for the European Marathon. I think Alistair's good enough to really dictate to the Scottish selectors what he wants to do. Unfortunately, they're not giving him that choice, and so we may see him in the 10,000 metres. And I don't think these days he's as good at 10,000 metres as he is at the marathon.
Still Hutton Tsai and Kanhai together. And as they go through, we may be able to pick up the race for the places in the first 10. So there's 3, 4 and 5. And the 6th man should be in sight.
Japan with 2 men in the first 5. Interesting history which dates back to the 36 Olympic Games, and Kitty-son won it. And Kitty-son turned out to be a Korean, but it did give the Japanese an event to identify with. Kevin Forster there, wearing 10, but I think there's a small group in front of them. But Kevin Forster running well.
And the leader now clear of the Tower of London and approaching the embankment. Seko of Japan, the 22 miles time, 1:47.40. And he's slowed quite dramatically then with a 5 minute 16-second mile. He looks to be going quite powerfully, but in fact he is slowing. And those are the various mile splits for the leader. And incidentally, he's some 92 seconds, we're told, ahead of Hugh Jones in second place, who went through 22 miles in 1:49.12.
There we can see his strain on his face. That's the first kind of pressure we've seen from Seko, and we sensed through the tower area that he was slowing, but there's the evidence that he's not only slowing, but he's finding this really hard, and he's struggling. And he's out there for a personal best time. He's out there for a Japanese record, and these landmarks are slipping out of sight. 2:8.15 is the Japanese record. He's desperate to prove himself as being the #1 Japanese runner. He's signaling with his hand there. I'm sure he's asking for a drink. He's waved 4 or 5 times, and I'm sure he's not the type to celebrate his victory. I'm sensing that he wants some help. So Hugh Jones about 1.5 minutes behind. That's possibly the closest he's been in the last few miles, but Hugh looking just the same as he's looked for the last 5 or 6 or even 10 miles. That grimace is a grimace of it's not as bad as it looks, actually. I think Hugh always looks like that, frankly.
Actually, he'd probably look a lot better if he could see the sort of problems Seiko's having up front.
Absolutely. He wants one long road where he can see the back of the Japanese. And this really is a serious business for the Japanese. Cast your minds back to 1964 when Tsuburaya was second in the Tokyo arena in that marathon, was overtaken by Basil Heatley of Coventry, and because he was overtaken, he never recovered, and he committed a ritual harikari suicide as a result of that. This is a very, very important event. He rarely shows strain, and this man is now showing agony. It's not just strain, he is really under the cosh, and he's got problems. Seko in real trouble. It looked as though the cobblestones had a dramatic effect, and if Hugh Jones can get one look at the back of that man and one long straight and realize that he is suffering badly, and certainly if he could see that face, it would give Hugh a lift to know that this race is not yet over.
It just shows you, though, in the marathon, it's not how you look and how you feel at 10 miles and 15 miles that matters. It's how you feel from 20 miles to the finish that matters. And we've seen him struggling here in the last couple of miles. This race certainly isn't over, even though that's an enormous gap, because once you've gone, you've gone, and you go, and you can see the pressure on his face. We can see that his legs aren't as bouncy as they were before. Mine, nobody's legs are as bouncy as they were earlier in the race, but this is interesting. It's exciting. This is his chance to establish himself as the #1 in Japan, so this time still really means an awful lot to him. The course record, there's incentives for the course record, and you can see the course record, he's slipping away from it. He's 7 seconds ahead of last year's Steve Jones time, and in previous miles he's been minutes ahead. So
interesting too, Brendan, that the most recent test he's had as to his own racing ability was over 30 kilometers and not over the 42 kilometers of a marathon distance. And he's into that area now, and Hugh Jones might just be sensing it, and he's swinging along. He's still got a lot of drive in his arms and a lot of knee lift in his legs. He's grimacing okay because it's hurting out there, but conditions have improved, and if he gets that lovely long shot of Seko, then although there is an enormous gap, it's one which is still manageable. This is the gap that we're trying to see. Hugh Jones looking for the back of Toshihiko Seko. It's a long, long way, but that's the time he can see it. And this could still turn into a race.
Hugh driving hard, but he too looks very tired. And it's not surprising because the early pace was very, very fast. But they're both suffering. And of course, this is a very testing mental part of the race, because coming along the embankment there, in the far distance, you can actually see Big Ben, which of course is just before the finish. But there's a loop to run round, which takes them on a longer route to complete the 26 miles, 385 yards. So mentally, it's a very testing period, because they're turning away very shortly from the finish.
I agree with that, because that really is psychologically tough, because you see the finish there. You can see, if he looks to his left, you can see the finish, but he's actually got to turn right, go away from the finish, and then swing right round. And amazingly, 2 or 3 of the people who've won this race have commented about how difficult that is, how mentally difficult it is, because there you can see the Houses of Parliament down ahead, and the finish is to the left there. So Seko's still got quite a few miles to run, and Jones is, as we've seen now, is suffering a little. But behind Jones, there's an interesting race going on, Alistair Hutton, and there's also an interesting race for places in the English Commonwealth Games team.
And one wonders how their race plan has gone. Seko clearly went out for a very fast time, and that may be partially affecting the way that he's running now, although he's still full of running. And Hugh Jones may have paced himself on the sort of pace he is at the moment, and it may not quite have affected him, although, of course, both are looking very tired and worn, as well they should, because the discipline and the sheer distance of this race is very tough indeed.
You couldn't have a better picture there than the illustration of the pain of marathon running. At the very top level, it hurts. And I've always felt, Brendan, at the very top level too, these boys have only got so many fast ones.
I would support that entirely. It seems to be there's a career which lasts maybe 4, 5 or 6 marathons. Once they've lost it, they very rarely recapture it. Alberto Salazar is a good example of that. He held the world's best time for quite a while, and once it's gone, it's gone. And it seems to me that, you know, a career should be planned a long time in advance in terms of how many marathons a year you're going to run. And if they run too many, which some of the Americans have been doing recently, then their performances suffer drastically. But this is his first race since the Olympic Games, where he was so disappointed with that 14th place, where everyone in Japan was expecting him to win. A lot of observers worldwide were expecting him to feature. Carlos Lopez won it, John Tracy was second, and our own Charlie Spedding was third. And all 3 of them were asking, as soon as they crossed the line, where's Seko? Because he had this little bit of mystique about him.
And I think it was fairly clear from that shot that Chris Hallam was the leader in the wheelchair race. Gary O'Rourke, I beg his pardon, in the green of Dublin. Interesting background on this man, because 8 years ago he went to the University of Southern California, having failed to get into Tokyo University, and he put on a lot of weight, and was running pretty badly when he met with the coach Nakamura, who suggested that he was letting down Japan and letting down their image of distance running. And it was then that he returned to Japan and went to Tokyo University and accepted the discipline that this event demands. Tremendous hero in Japan, of course. Seko, as are all their good marathon runners, the So twins, and the man in 5th place, Kanai.
Seko just turning out of Northumberland Avenue, and he's got within his sights now the famous Admiralty Arch. He's the leader in the men's race, and meanwhile, back at the tower, we should be able to see Greta Weitz shortly, who's the leading lady. And so Seko faces up to the wide open spaces of the mile. He's got just over a mile to go. And although he must be feeling very tired indeed, and clearly is, he can hardly feel threatened. It's noticeable, in fact, he hasn't been looking back at all. So he must have some information about how the race is going. But he's not, although he's been in pain, he's not seemed very anxious about where Hugh Jones is. So he must be getting race information.
He may well be, because he only looked round once, and I thought that was the beginning of this, just passed through the 40-kilometre mark, 2 hours, 2 minutes. So he's got 2.1 kilometres to go. He's still on for that good record time, though. It depends what happens here in the last 2 kilometres. But he's fairly well clear of Steve Jones, and I think of Hugh Jones, and he looked around, he didn't see anybody. That probably gave him a mental boost. The only person he can see, and he's looking there now, the only thing he can see is the leading wheelchair athlete.
I would suggest he's not very bothered now about the second athlete. He's more bothered, rather, he's not very bothered about the time anymore. He's more bothered about the second athlete. And a measure of his tiredness was the way he wandered across the road, actually, when he looked back. Anybody who's ever run any distance at all will know that feeling well, because you can't hold a straight line. The legs have been pounding, the rhythm goes as you look back, and he's got now, what, a mile, just under a mile and a quarter. We may be able to look back along the mile to Admiralty Arch and see if Hugh Jones is closing. And he is in sight now. There's no doubt in this closing couple of miles, Hugh Jones has been closing the gap all the time. But it looks too great for him to actually catch the Japanese. Seko now with Buckingham Palace in sight. And really, that has been a dramatic change. Hugh Jones is fairly storming along now. He can see Seko. He's trying to attack, but I must reckon on that shot he must be some, still 80 to 100 metres behind. But really, when an athlete is tiring in the way Seko is, it's amazing how much you can close in the last mile. And Hugh Jones now has the encouragement of seeing that the leader is tiring and knowing, actually, that he's feeling strong himself.
And this is the first sight, I would say, he's had of Seko since they took off, since they started. The point being here, it's about Seko slowing down, definitely. We don't know how much it is that Hugh Jones is picking up and speeding up, but Seko is suffering badly and he's slowing badly. And I mean, there we can see it, and there's the sight. This is the point in the race that all the athletes in Britain certainly dream about, coming along the mile, leading the London Marathon. And he's turning that corner there at the top of the mile, and if he knows the course, and knowing these guys, they'll have been looking around it, he'll have measured it. He knows how far he's got to go.
I think that lens we had on the ground was a bit deceptive. I think the helicopter shot that showed that it was nearer 200 yards than 100 yards. That's the gap, and although he's closing, that's still a tremendous gap that he's got to close on. And he still looks as though he's got some bounce in his legs. He must sense that Hugh Jones is behind, although he hasn't really spotted him. And Hugh still looks dogged and determined. He's trying to lift himself. He knows he's clear in second. He knows he's running for a fast time, and he'll get selection in that. But whether he's got enough time left or enough energy to close that considerable gap on Seko is, I think, at this stage doubtful.
Seko looks at the watch, and that will be telling him the story of how he's fading, in fact, because his last mile was 5:20 odd, so he's slowing down, but we believe he's safe. Seko, I don't think can see Big Ben there. He's very, very anxious now, though.
Well, he's gone from a 2.7 pace, and I think he's slowed so much in the last 2 or 3 miles that he's going to be lucky to... He's not going to do 2.8, he's going to do 2.9 now. And I mean, when you see he's gone from world record pace and it's all gone in the last couple of miles, it tells you all about this event, and it tells you about how to pace yourself early on. It tells you about being in a position that you've never been in before, because Hugh Jones has been on around a 2.9 pace for most of the way, whereas Seko's slowed dramatically. And here's the result. You can now see him, and that leading wheelchair athlete has done remarkably well to clock this kind of time run.
Jerry O'Rourke, 2 hours 12, his best time, the 22-year-old from Dublin. And that's the sort of time he wanted, because he had such a battle with Chris Hallam. He knew he had to get away from him, and he's in second place overall at the moment, but of course he's got time to be added on. But Jerry O'Rourke in between the two who are battling it out, and Hugh Jones still pounding along. He really uses a lot of energy to cover the ground that he does. He's got a big arm swing and a big knee lift. And Alastair Hutton appears to be, in third place and has run remarkably well. Getting away from the Turk now. Alastair Hutton of Edinburgh making a big point here in the London Marathon.
And it may well be that Seko now in these final few yards is getting away again. Hugh Jones has clearly settled for second place. What a marvellous moment this must be. Britons have won the London Marathon for the last 4 years. Dick Beardsley, United States, and Inge Simonsen of Norway, dead heated for first place in the initial running of this great race. Then it was won by Hugh Jones in 82, Mike Grattan in 83, Charlie Spedding in 84, and in 85, we've got the first Japanese winner. It's going to be outside 2 hours 9 minutes, but winning now more important than the time. Toshihiko Seko, the man who started as favourite and has finished as champion. It's 29. Chris Brasher, the race director, jogging in ahead. And Seko, though tired as he approaches Westminster Bridge, is still quite strong. Being directed to the right finishing funnel. And Seko wins for Japan the 1986 London Marathon. A really powerful piece of running. Positive. He's had to work hard since he took over in front, because for the last, 10, 11 miles, he's been by himself. In a moment, Hugh Jones, the 1982 winner, will be coming in second place. Hugh Jones chasing the man who may well be the winner of the wheelchair race.
Jerry O'Rourke, and they're having quite a little battle, and Hugh's picking himself up again. He dropped back, he was really struggling. You checked to see that his second place was not in any danger, and look at this for a finish. It's a spirited finish from Hugh Jones. He really is pouring it on now, and he's got his battle with Jerry O'Rourke, and his place certain for the European Championships, and good to see him back and based in this country and running so well. It was a big gap at the end of the day. Seko will be there to greet him, I'm sure, but Hugh Jones running quite magnificently.
And this has proved to be a really hard race, because Hugh is going to be some 2 minutes behind his winning time in 1982. O'Rourke coming in to win the wheelchair race. But I think, actually, Brendan Foster, this is the penalty for the very fast early pace.
I think it has to be, because I'm sure Seko, if he'd been a bit more conservative early on, could have run faster than he did at 2:10. And I'm surprised that you could run 2:11.40 to finish second in the London Marathon this year, because I'm sure that everyone was thinking one would have to run faster than that. I'm sure Hugh thought he'd have to run faster than 2:11. And there I'm pleased to see Alastair Hutton in third place. he's done it right. He didn't really go to win this race. He came here to qualify for the European Championships. He came here to show the Scottish selectors a point, because they're going to pick their team for the Commonwealth Games tomorrow. And if they pick him for the marathon, he'll say, no, thank you very much. You're going to have to pick me for the 10,000, otherwise I'm not available. And it's not arrogance. It's just that I think he knows more about marathon running than those Scottish selectors do.
Well, that's anticipating perhaps that Alistair Hutton will not change his mind. But this is a fine piece of running, and he finishes in 3rd place, as he did 12 months ago.
And he looks the best of the finishers, doesn't he? He looks as though he's paced himself with another marathon in mind this year. And that is an important point, because if he's running in the British Fest for us in the European Championships, he saved a little bit today, and he could be a threat in that race. Alistair Hutton running superbly. Kanai of Japan, the next Japanese home. And if he finishes in 4th, 2 Japanese in the first 4 runners, and that's a jump to Pat Peterson of America that's got through, and maybe he's ahead of the Japanese as well. That's Pat Peterson, who came here with a tremendous reputation.
Terzi of Turkey finishing there. Bit difficult to tell, actually, whether that was a cutaway shot we saw earlier of Kanhai, or whether Kanhai, in fact, finished in 4th place.
Now wearing 7, we've got Michael Bishop, the fastest Englishman, and he's going to be second to Jerry O'Rourke, who wins 2-1 over Chris Hallam. Delighted to see that Chris Hallam's still on the course. But Mike Bishop is the first Englishman home in the wheelchair race, and here's Kanai. That settles where he's finishing there. 2:13.42 for Kanai in Japan, and he looks pretty exhausted at the finish of that. He really is. He's run himself out, no doubt about it. Alistair Hutton was the man who finished looking the best of the first half dozen. Kverno of Norway coming in. And there's Bishop. The man wearing 69 was Geir Kverno. We're not absolutely certain of his position, but he's amongst these. I think that's Kevin Foster. Is that on a Gateshead rest? No. It's the other Turk that's finishing. I do him an injustice. That's Alban of Denmark. That's Kverno of Norway. And 11 is Caetano of Portugal. Tremendous run from him. And they really are battling it out now. 39, Lindsay Robertson, the Scot that we saw earlier. He may well have got himself selection for Scotland in that run. Lindsay Robertson wearing 39. Kevin Forster finishing. The Gateshead man.
Just looking at some of these boys finishing, like Kevin Foster, your clubmate, Brendan. We've had some pretty quick runs in the London Marathon in recent years. But again, I'm convinced that a lot of them have paid the penalty for the early pace. Don't you think this is underlined by the way some of these boys have finished?
Well, I think Kevin Foster there, 2:15, and to finish, Hugh Jones finished second in 2:11. There's something wrong here, and the only thing I can think of right now is that the pace has been so fast early on. Some of them went with it, and they've suffered for it. Kjell-Erik Stahl finishing there. He always runs faster than that.
And Alan Storer's Chinese athlete Zhu Zuqin has gone through, number 36. He was in about 15th, I think, Brendan. So good international gathering at the finish here. We've had Danes and Norwegians, Chinese, Japanese finishing with these British runners, as well as the Turks. John Boys wearing 22 from Bournemouth AC has just got through. And that's the second Turk, Ahmed Altoun, wearing 74, just gone through. Back in the mile, we're looking for Greta Weitz. And Jim Dingwall of Scotland, City of Hull AC, 36 now, with the beard leading that little pack. Larry Cratton of Sunderland Harriers in that pack, and here's Greta Weitz. Led the women's race from start to finish. And Greta Weitz being helped along by a small pack, but misses her brother. Her brother, Jan Andersen, who usually runs with her. 32 now, Greta, and finishing very strongly indeed.
Actually, she's outside Ingrid Christensen's course record for last year, which was 2:21.06. But she's very close to her own personal best on this course of 2:25.29. 1:89 with her, David Dixon of Sunderland Harriers. He's got a best time of 2:23, so he's very close to that. And he's the perfect companion there for Greta Weitz, pace-wise.
Seems to me that Greta is suffering similarly to Seko. She was on pace for a personal best of around 2:24, but she's got a little bit of running to do in the last 2 miles to beat that 2:24, to get close to that 2:24. So I'm not sure her personal best of 2:25 is what really was her target, and I thought she was going to run 2:23, 2:24. Doesn't seem as though she's going to do that, though.
Interesting point, Brendan. The girl that's running the times back to us and telling us how she's getting on, Greta Weitz that is Sarah Rowell, who was due to run in this race and one of the favourites, certainly the best of the English girls, but had to pull out with injury and couldn't run. But she's running on the time clock today to let us know how Greta Weitz is getting on. Dashing across the park to get us the time. So Greta Weitz, and it may be one of the last times we see her in a marathon, except hopefully in Stuttgart for those European Championships, finishing a glittering career. And she wanted to win this one back. She and Ingrid Christensen have put Norway on the map of marathon running in an incredible way, and both of them heroines in their own country.
Ron, she's just gone through 25 miles there, and she was with David Dixon, who's a good club athlete from Sunderland Harriers, the 3A champion club. She's put her head down now. She's pushing it because she definitely wants that personal best here, and she's still got it to do in the last mile and a bit. But I think she could do it, but she has to really run in that last batch, and she'll have known this. She'll have information. Whether Seko got information on the way along the road, I'm not sure, but I'm sure Greta has, because her coach goes on the bike and shouts at her from all over the place. So her husband Jack's here to help her too. So I think she got the message then that she's got some running to do in the last mile.
I hope some of these club athletes realise it and can help her, because my word, she's been responsible for a whole army of women taking up marathon running. She really has done a tremendous job. First world champion, she was 5 times world champion at cross country, quite apart from this career as a marathon runner. And it's extraordinary that a small country like Norway should produce another great champion in marathon running in Ingrid Christensen. And these two, great friends, but often battle away. And she's a girl who's got her legs in shape after injury this year through taking up Langlauf skiing, which of course is a national sport in Norway. She thought she was going to be out of marathon running, and she took up this long-distance skiing 4 to 5 hours a day, and is a very accomplished long-distance skier. And her husband and coach Jack said that it's got her legs in tremendous condition, and she really looks as though she's got a sprint finish in her now, and that's the reason she's running well now. That skiing has really paid off, helped her recover from injury and give her the sort of the spring back in her legs that she needs. But she admits that the pressures are growing. She's looking forward to retiring. She says every time she runs, so much is expected of her, but she is still tremendously popular in Norway. Greta Weitz running now against the clock for the fastest time in her life at 32 years of age. The first woman home by a long margin at the moment, providing she finishes. And if someone in that pack like Jimmy Dingwall can realise what she wants and just pick the pace up and swing along with her, then we're going to have another remarkable run from Greta Weitz.
There's a double incentive for those boys there. I can see a good friend of mine, Larry Pratt from Sunderland Harriers there, and as soon as he sees Greta, he'll speed up. I mean, he will help her, but he won't want her to beat him. But I mean, I think Greta, if she can just latch onto the back of that group, she can get some incentive and some help. But you can see she's accelerating. She's finishing stronger as a winner of the women's race than we did see Seko finish as the winner of the men's race. So this is exciting. She'll be desperately disappointed to miss that personal best, and I think someone's told her that on the way. I think she can do it, and I think she's not gonna slow. She's running strongly, but There she is, passing the men in the last couple of miles. That must be tough for a good club runner, because these men are good runners.
Fascinating. Sorry, Brent. Fascinating that although she should have a house full of cups and trophies, she's given them all away to local clubs, athletic clubs and schools. She's that popular that she gets invited all over the place. No children herself yet, but plans that in place of Seoul. She's not going to run in the Seoul Olympic Games in '88, but she is going to run in Stuttgart, and that will be a marvellous occasion.
She's so experienced, she's judged the pace of this race perfectly. She didn't get carried away early on, and she's certainly finishing very comfortably. No sign of distress at all.
A 5 times winner of the New York, or is it 6? I know that she's had a tremendous run in that. She's as loved on that side of the Atlantic as she is here.
Actually, it's even better than that, Ron. I'm just checking back. She's won it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. She's won there. And there was one occasion, actually, she didn't finish. She got an injury problem. But you look at Greta's overall record, and it really is one of the great stories. I mean, she won the international cross-country title no less than 5 times. Actually, just looking back there's Mary O'Connor of New Zealand in the all-black in second place, just going through 25 miles. We believe she's in second place. And the last we heard of the ladies' race, she was being chased by Anne Ford and Paula Fudge, the twin sisters.
Trevor Hall from Leicester coming through to finish. Well done, Trevor.
Stan Greenberg assures us that Greta Weitz has won the New York Marathon 7 times. I did her an injustice. But her second win in the London, and that'll delight her. She really is charging through this lot now. They must sense that she's running against the clock.
Greta Weitz has gone through on the right-hand side of the shot as we look in, and now approaching the finish. Her personal best time in this London Marathon at 2 hours, 25 minutes, 29 seconds, so she's well on course for that. And Greta comes home very quickly indeed. It's a personal best at the age of 32. So many times the world cross-country champion. She's now run 11 marathons, which she has completed. She's won 10 of them. The only one she lost was the Olympic marathon to Joan Benoit when she finished in the silver medal position. So that's one of the quickest times ever recorded on this London Marathon course by a lady athlete.
She looks in tremendous shape too. Chris Brasher just going over to congratulate her. She really does pace herself magnificently. No signs of distress. And if ever there was a model for women running long distances, it's got to be Greta Weitz. Absolutely terrific. Looking Mary O'Connor, the second girl home. New Zealand's Mary O'Connor. She too is looking superbly controlled and well disciplined. Has trained herself for this event beautifully. Mary O'Connor coming home, and she's been given a lift by these club runners, running in the black, the silver fern, and they'll be very much in evidence in the Commonwealth Games at Edinburgh last week in July, first week in August. That's the next great gathering, the Edinburgh Commonwealth Games, and she may even be staying on for that. Wearing that black vest very proudly indeed.
Well, the New Zealand women are coming back. We saw them finish second to the English women in the World Cross Country Championships. And Mary O'Connor here leading the New Zealand distance runners. I mean, they've been top marathon runners, and here's another one from New Zealand. I noticed that Greta has only ever been run faster on this course was her teammate, Ingrid Christensen, in setting the record last time. So Greta and Ingrid own this London Marathon for women just about run.
Norway have got it stitched up, there's no doubt about that. Mind you, I think Chris Brasher saved some money today, has he not? because course records had to be broken for prize money and world best times, so they've saved some money. So perhaps next year's London Marathon is safe. Now, that's wearing number 5 is Anne Ford for England, the 34-year-old girl from Hounslow. England's first runner home. Anne Ford, the oldest of the twins by 10 minutes. She's chasing Mary O'Connor, who's 31 now. 5th in the 85 London Marathon and was 2nd in 83, so she knows this route backwards. She ran well in the cross-country championships this year. She was 19th in the world. And chosen for the 10-kilometre race in the Commonwealth Games, and she looks in good form for that. Mary O'Connor of New Zealand. Then Anne Ford of England, who's also a former national cross-country champion and a bronze medalist in the Commonwealth Games, so she's in great form. That's her twin sister, Paula Fudge, wearing F10. Again, another tremendous track career. The 1978 Commonwealth 3,000-metre champion, the 1982 national cross-country champion. These twin girls, it's Anne Ford wearing 5, her twin sister wears 10. They're almost together, and they too have had superb careers in track and field and in marathon running. Mary O'Connor. Is that John Offord, I think, running with her? John Offord wearing 31, Lester Corritanian. Just going along with Mary O'Connor. And the crowd lifting her too. The rain has gone. Tremendous atmosphere as ever in this London Marathon. And Big Ben showing noon. A lot of vets will be amongst this group. 2 hours 20 is their target. And Kirsty Jacobsen from Denmark, wearing F9, is the next lady home. 5th in the 84 marathon, 5th in the 1985 World Cup marathon. Very experienced, and my word, these ladies have made this look good. None of them shown any signs of distress. They've paced themselves well. If the men showed the agony, well, this is the ecstasy. That's a lovely swinging gait. She really looks a superb runner. Mary O'Connor. And John Offord just having a chat, a word of encouragement. 2 hours 30 coming up. It's been a fine run. So we'll look out for her. She's just near the finish now. She'll be racing over 25 laps in Edinburgh.
Just shows you how good these women are, because there's Mary O'Connor finishing 2nd, and just ahead of her, Don Ritchie in the red and white vest there. Looks like my own club vest, but he's a former record holder for 1,500 miles on the track, you know, so it just shows you what kind of athletes these women are.
Well, there hasn't been much doubt now, has there, for some years?
Mary O'Connor finishing, and the race for 3rd place should be over in just a moment. So Norway win, New Zealand 2nd. And the race for 3rd place between Paula Fudge and Kirsty Jacobsen.
Now that was Sylvia Bornet of France wearing F7. Not quite sure where she is on the course, but that's the French girl, Bornet, who ran 9th in the in last year's Chicago Marathon.
Actually, it's a bit difficult to pick up who's 3rd and who's 4th, but there's Paula Fudge, and we believe she's in and just coming through. And the French girl closing on her behind. F5 is Anne Ford, Paula Fudge's twin sister. Just behind her And we believe they're in 3rd and 4th places. The French girl, Cornet.
And she's the first that's looked pretty distressed. There's another race going on in the mile. Now, 18 on the back of that wheelchair is Michael Cunham. 26 is John Nord, London-based paraplegic, and Paula Fudge. Just coming home behind her twin sister, checking her time herself. And that may well be a personal best for Paula. Jakobsen is the girl just behind her.
Well, that solves the placing problem. There's Kirsty Jakobsen coming in. We're thinking about 6th place.
2 hours 32, 30 plus. Now this is where the approach marshals will be bracing themselves, the pre-shoot marshals, the rope funnel marshals, the separators, the readers, the riders and the chute pushers, plus the barcode pluckers, the spindlers and the exit marshals. This is where they all get ready for the mass. And the first man suffering from real bad cramp, trying to stretch himself out. Do it the other way, stretch the legs, don't bend them. Oh, that's tough. He's in, that's 879. But there's a number in front, a letter in front of it. T, we think, T879. Struggling. I think that's Gordon Reeves from Saltwell Harriers. Tyne, we're from Cramlington, your neck of the woods, Brendan. Wanted to finish in 2 hours 40, but he's struggling now.
Actually, that is a Saltwell vest, I think, Ron. But it's significant, isn't it? Look where he is. And we've talked about the problems that cobbles give the athletes. He's around 23 miles there, and that uneven surface, if you've really perhaps gone too fast too soon, you pay for it there.
I admitted earlier that this in the rain is tough to walk over, I tell you. It really is. Down there in the week, it's pretty treacherous. And but there's a few brave souls out there. Maybe the early euphoria has left them now, but this crowd has got to lift them, because this is what the London Marathon is all about. It may be the only time in their lives that they'll run a marathon, and it may be just one of those personal ambitions, and just to make it on the day is the first ambition. To make it home, of course, is the second ambition. Mad Sharples, there she is, back from a trip around the world. And really, she turned up at the pasta party last night with half a dozen marvellous T-shirts from Hawaii, from Honolulu, from California, and we raffled them all for charity, and £100 was made in no time. Good to see her back. I don't think the London Marathon would be the London Marathon without Mad Sharples.
If the answer is no, well, my sweetness means you meet me in the hallway.
The match was not at halfway there, and the scatter of talent at the London Marathon is quite astounding, isn't it, when you think of the gaps that develop.
I can hear your music playing.
The new cartons of water there, non-spill, just suck it through a straw.
Well, my darling, 3 times on the ceiling if you want me. Oh, and twice on the pipe if the answer is no. I love you, yeah, my sweetness means you meet me in the hallway. And twice on the pipe means you ain't gonna show.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the big finale. I want everyone with their arms in the air. Every single one of you, come on. There are 19 million people watching you close the the show, all right? Now, I want to prove that you're the best singers in the whole of Jamaica Road, in the whole of London, in the whole of the country. So I want you to answer this phrase. All right, here we go. Here we go. Oggy, oggy, oggy. Oggy, oggy, oggy. 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 Oggy, oggy, oggy.
You're everywhere and nowhere.
Go on, his arms.
Well, that's where you're at.
And the police, women and men.
Rolling down the country
Go on,
hillside.
PC.
With calling the cats.
Well done, sir.
Flying across the.
All of you over there, wave your arms.
Well, as we near the end of this first transmission on the 1986 marathon, a check on the placings. These are unofficial. The winner was the favourite, Seko of Japan. In second place for Great Britain, Hugh Jones, who was the winner in 1982. Third, the man who was third last year from Edinburgh Southern Harriers, Alistair Hutton. In fourth place, the American Pat Peterson. In fifth place from Turkey, Terzi. And in sixth place, the fastest ever West German, Christoph Hurler.
They're waving at me.
By the way, that's a provisional result, and this also provisional for the 1986 Mars London Marathon women's result. The winner, Greta Weitz, had time to be confirmed yet, what we believe inside 2 hours 25 minutes. In second place, Mary O'Connor of New Zealand, and third, Anne Ford of Great Britain. So as we look around now, the sights, the carnival in full swing at Jamaica Road just before Tower Bridge. That's the embankment with the athletes now some 2 to 3 miles from the finish. And it looks like a record number of finishers. So the men's marathon won by Seko of Japan.